gentlemen, welcome on in. It is Monday morning, September 12th, which means week one is almost in the books. We got Seattle and Denver tonight, but we have got our week one initial reactions, and it is finally time. We got some data, we got some stuff to look at, we got some game schemes that we've seen, some things that, we thought during the offseason that came true, maybe didn't come true, some stuff we didn't think was going to happen that is happening, looks to be a thing. So a lot of information to get through here on this half an hour show. I, as always, am your host, NathanPaswell. Follow me on Fantasy Daily, or follow me at Fantasy Daily Football on TikTok, at Fantasy Daily _ on Instagram, and you can also follow me at NPaswell on Twitter to hear me rant about stuff during the game. Now, this is the week one initial jerk reaction, so these are all the notes and stuff that I wrote down while I was watching the games, all my main takeaways from the games. I am going to, during the week, I do go back and I look at each game, and I watch the coaches' film for those to kind of get more in depth. Like, I really want to see where Juju was, and kind of how he was placed, because he was kind of mixed in with targets, but I am kind of rising on the fact that if Juju is in certain spots, if he plays a lot of slot action, then I would rise on him as far as him being that number one that everybody really wants. So that's somebody that I'm really looking at. Another player, Justin Fields, very excited to go back and see that Chicago and San Francisco game because it was a wet one. So a lot of different things can get in the way of that when you're first watching it. You're trying to digest everything at once. So I like to go back and watch these games. But these are my initial jerk reactions. So subject to change, but I do feel very confident about them. Let's first of all talk about my lineup of the week. So we had Matt Ryan as my quarterback of the week. I thought he was going to absolutely go off. Unfortunately, we'll get into that. We'll talk about the things that may have happened that could have led him into a better game. But he scores 16.28. That's a W for the 15-point threshold in the lineup of the week. So that's a W. We got Tony Pollard and Rashad Penny still to go. We had Gabriel Davis on Thursday. That was a W. But we had a double loss at wide receiver with DJ Moore scoring just 8 points and Adam Thielen scoring just 6. But Gerald Everett we had with the W at tight end because he got in the end zone as well. So let us start breaking down all the games. Now, I'm going to try to really spitfire these at you because I have a lot of takeaways from these games. We have a lot of games to go through in this little half an hour show. So if you guys have any questions, anything like that, drop them in the comments below. I'll be sure to answer those, anything that you're concerned about of your team, things like that. But let us get right into it with Jacksonville and Washington. 22-28, Washington takes it home on the back of Carson Wentz with 4 touchdowns, just like we thought he was going to do, like everybody who fired him up as a quarterback one did this week. No, seriously, the wide receivers in Washington are just really that good. Each one of them scoring a touchdown, just really making things happen. That long bomb at the end of the game to Terry McLaurin was just a thing of beauty. McLaurin in stride, Carson Wentz really showing out with them today. And Gibson shows that he really can be the lead back. So if you have Gibson and you're a little bit worried about what he could have been coming into this game, you can kind of run with him now, because I do believe that you're going to be able to hang on to him until Brian Robinson comes back week 5 or 6 area. And I think that Gibson could still have consistent value after that. So if you were one of the Gibson managers just like me, I have him in Dynasty, that was a little bit concerned. I think that now you can rise up on him a little bit. Very excited to see what they can do as far as the season goes on. I'm excited to see what he can do as the season goes on with Brian Robinson returning, if that is a thing. So on the Jacksonville side of the ball, they do look kind of promising. They need work. They really didn't get settled in, but they will have fantasy value. Maybe not Trevor Lawrence, but these running backs for sure. Christian Kirk looking good. And looking at the box score, you may think that it's all James Robinson because he had a great game, but ETN was on the field a lot, and I do think that when you look at everything in a vacuum, ETN actually did more with his volume, and he had absolutely, the opportunity. T-Law missed him on 2 wide open touchdowns. So these running backs, they really could be like a Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb situation, where they're both, effective. You can play them every single game, and you really, have some promise in even bad matchups that either one of these guys could give you some value. So very excited for those guys in Jacksonville. Christian Kirk getting it done, so you can probably trust him as the main guy who got paid over there. Evan Ingram does not show up, despite me talking about him in my TikTok live, saying if you needed a, deep end grab starting this morning, then I was a little bit higher on Evan Ingram than I should have been. But moving on now to Baltimore and the Jets. Baltimore goes 24, Jets 9. Baltimore getting the win on the road. Lamar passes look automatic. That was my main takeaway from this game. Those Lamar Jackson passes look like they were shot out of a rubber band launcher or whatever it is, like one of those toys from back in the day that you just kind of pull back and it, like the way that these passes were thrown, Lamar's passing game is tenfold what it was. So Lamar showing up with the 3 touchdowns. Just like we said with the backfield in Baltimore, you avoid them because there was nothing to look at over there today. It was all passing action for Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews doesn't get the touchdown, but he doesn't sink you as well. Devin Duvernay hauling in 2 touchdowns on 4 targets and 4 receptions. Bateman had the touchdown as well, so it could be a situation where both wide receivers are viable with Andrews there because these running backs are going to take a backseat a lot to Lamar Jackson, and I do think his passing game, especially after what we saw today, is going to be, next level. It's not even just the fact that they played against the Jets. It's some of these passes that he made, the way that he throws the ball, the way that he looked in the pocket, the way that he looked when he was under duress. Lamar looks really, really good throwing today. So I do think that Devin Duvernay is going to be a huge commodity or a huge player that people are looking at on the waiver wire come Wednesday morning, Tuesday waiver is clear. But Devin Duvernay, I think he's going to be one of the hot waiver names, so we'll talk about that a lot more on Tuesday's show. Elijah Moore falling short of Corey Davis today on the Jets side of the ball. Corey Davis was involved a lot. Flacco bombing the ball 59 times for 37 completions, most of which went to running backs, which is very sad. Michael Carter taking the lead today with a great split between him and Breece Hall, but I do think that Michael Carter is going to be involved a lot. So if he is on your waiver wire, because a lot of people took Breece Hall, then maybe you could look at Michael Carter as somebody that you could slot in, because I do believe in that certain matches. Michael Carter will be viable. I do like Michael Carter's talent. Last year we talked about him a lot, and I was really high on Michael Carter, so he could be one of those guys you're looking at. Moving on to New England at Miami. Miami gets the win at home, New England 7, Miami 20. And hello, head coach Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins. What a way to start off your career as the Dolphins head coach, getting a win at home against New England. But New England always struggles in Miami. We weren't really acknowledging anybody on that team except for a lot of Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson questions that we got this week, which you're really, grabbing, kind of reaching there. Those were late end guys anyway, which you were really kind of flexing out. So disappointed in those, but it's really not hurting you because you kind of expected what was going to happen with those guys. You didn't really... I'm hoping that you don't need those guys. If you do, then you really have to go out there and kind of trade up to get a running back if you need them. But both of them really disappointing games. Mac Jones revealed to have a back injury after the game. Further info tomorrow, but it is said to not be serious. So we'll see what happens with Mac Jones. A little scary for the New England fans out there, such as myself, because that team does not look good at all. And if you lose Mac Jones, that's not great at all. Miami side of the ball, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both heavily involved in this game. We expected it, and it is nice to see that you can trust both of them. So Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill are going to be heavily involved this year. It looks like this team is going to be heavily involved in the passing attack. Chase Edmonds was the clear one. He got some opportunities, but not enough in a game where you thought you were going to see him a lot. They went to the pass a lot. So the tight ends, very uninvolved, so this has massive appeal for Waddle and Hill. For me, I would roll them out basically every single week from now on, as far as when you need somebody in that wide receiver spot and you're kind of looking at your tilt, you can always go with one of them. Moving on to Indy at Houston. Boo ties. Why should this go into a tie? They should have let this game go. And it does end in a tie, but it shouldn't have. Indy should have won this game by 2 touchdowns. My Matt Ryan pick, I was very sad. He had 2 touchdowns dropped in the end zone today. Very, very sad. So Pittman comes through for you, though, on that wide receiver 1 flow. He puts up 27 in PPR. JT, he is an animal, obviously. And Nyheim Hines, he's going to have stream appeal if you absolutely need it. If you're in deep reach 14-team leagues and you need a deep stream at running back, Nyheim Hines could have some appeal because Matt Ryan does seem to look at him in those areas where he kind of bubbles out to the side or runs those little, kind of out routes or maybe even wheel routes. So Nyheim Hines is going to have some appeal for deep reaches. Now on the Houston side of the ball, Davis Mills was looking pretty good, man. Brandon Cooks had a solid performance. Dameon Pierce, we obviously talked about him a lot in the offseason, but we said this week that you want to bench him, you want to see what happens, and Rex Burkhead got the game over Dameon Pierce. So Dameon Pierce, you're going to have to wait and see and probably play the matchup on that. But the big man, O.J. Howard, was the story over there. He gets 2 touchdowns on 2 targets. So not sure I'm going to chase that as far as tight end appeal goes. People are probably going to be flocking to him on the waiver wire, but I would not spend a waiver wire priority on O.J. Howard when it was 2 targets because that is very hard to contest, especially when you're trying to chase points like that. I'm not going to trust that every game. So that ends in a tie. Boo. Off to Philadelphia and Detroit. Philadelphia gets the win by 3, 38-35, but it is DeAndre Swift season, man. DeAndre Swift looks like the absolute best running back in the NFL right now. After what we saw in week 1, out of all the running backs that we saw, out of all the games that we saw, some exciting things, some players coming back that we really wanted to see, kind of pop, and they did. But DeAndre Swift looks like by far and away the best running back in the league. He looks like he's shot out of a cannon on every single play. He looks so much faster than anybody else around him. And if there is a way in heck that anybody is out there, willing to move DeAndre Swift, he's kind of my Jonathan Taylor piece from last year where I'm all over DeAndre Swift. If you can go get DeAndre Swift, I absolutely would. He had, 23 points I think it was today, and he only had 18 touches. Jamal Williams vultured 2 touchdowns from him, and he still had a massive game. So in games where Jamal Williams isn't involved as much, DeAndre Swift is going to be an absolute dominant running back one. I don't believe this to be a Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt type of situation where both of them are getting ran. I believe that DeAndre Swift will have games where he is far and away the main ball carrier with 30 touches, and Jamal Williams kind of disappears. So DeAndre Swift, I'm all about him. He is probably my favorite thing that I saw this weekend or during the games. I really like the fact that DeAndre Swift really looks, absolutely everything we wanted him to be. So for the wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, baby, I loved him all offseason. He gets 12 targets in this game with Hawkinson back, so take that to everybody who thought he was only going to get targets because Hawkinson was out. He gets 12 targets. He's clearly the number 1 target for Jared Goff, and I love it. Keep rolling with him in your lineups. DJ Chark also getting 8 targets and touchdown in this one. It's good showing for Detroit, just falling short. But I do think that DJ Chark will have games where you see him below 8 targets, so that's probably his ceiling. And I do believe that Amon-Ra keeps it rolling. Miles Sanders on the other side of the ball. He has a good game against the Detroit run defense. He scores a touchdown and makes some managers happy, which I'm glad because I told a couple people on my TikTok live to start Miles Sanders over some stuff. But the big story here from this game, besides DeAndre Swift on the Philadelphia side of the ball, the big story of the game for me is A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts is continuing his quest to be the quarterback number 1. I believe that he has that appeal and he will continue that. But A.J. Brown and his connection looks elite. And I do believe that if you have A.J. Brown, you drafted him as a wide receiver 1. I was a little bit lower on him. You got to catapult him into that wide receiver 1 category because I think you're about to see something really special with A.J. Brown. He could get hyper targeted from Jalen Hurts, and I'm very excited to see what could happen in this one with this team when they start doing that stuff. So very excited for A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts moving forward. Moving on to the slop game, San Francisco at Chicago. Chicago gets the win 19-10, and how exciting for Justin Fields and all them. They do the slip and slide at the end of the game because they're so excited to get that first win, and I'm very excited for this. But I do have to say my main takeaway from this is to don't overreact to your players. Now, the one thing that we can talk about is Deebo Samuel. He got the rushing opportunities. He fumbled at the beginning. They still rushed him. So as much as they were talking in the offseason that he didn't want to be rushing the ball, he's going to be doing it. Maybe it's because Elijah Mitchell came out. Maybe Kyle Shanahan's back there like, hey, Elijah Mitchell's out. I need a running back. And he kind of, pressured Deebo Samuel into doing it. But Deebo Samuel is going to be involved in the run. So we talked a lot about how if Deebo Samuel does return to that wide receiver 1 form, he is going to need that rushing upside. So to see him have that and put up 12, 13 points in this game, in a slip and slide game like they had, it is very promising. So I'm very excited that, you kind of see that happen with Deebo Samuel. But with Brandon Ayuk, he disappoints. But even with Deebo's involvement, I would not be too wary on Ayuk. I wouldn't go crazy. I would definitely hang on to him, still kind of stay high on him and watch what happens. This was a really sloppy game. Ayuk gets a good pass at the beginning of the game, but the conditions out of this game really got really out of hand really fast, and they really had to keep the ball on the ground and kind of just do what they could close to it, and neither team barely could score in this one. So what a mess of a game, a fun one to watch. Very excited to go back to watch this one because these two young quarterbacks, my interpretation of them is we're going to see them for a long time. I'm very excited for them. Elijah Mitchell goes down early in with this one. He was seen with a leg brace after the game, so Jeff Wilson becomes a huge add this week. But don't sleep on Trevon Davis-Price. I do believe that he could be involved. He had the highest yards per carry in the preseason. So even if he was a healthy scratch, I think you should keep an eye on him, but also add Jeff Wilson. Don't add Price. Keep an eye on him. Add Price if you're in a deeper league, but Jeff Wilson should be available, so go ahead and take a look at him. Fields looks very promising. Like I said, he's going to have some big games. Mooney doesn't show up, but there will be big games. Like I said, this one got away from them, so I'm really not overreacting to any of the players over here. Khalil Herbert gets the touchdown over David Montgomery, but Montgomery was the clear one. I would proceed with caution with this because of how much Justin Fields is going to run. So if you are the Montgomery manager and you could package him with a wide receiver to get something better, I would do that. But I would be very cautious of David Montgomery going forward because of the fact that Justin Fields is going to run a lot. So moving on from there, let us get into Cleveland at Carolina. Cleveland 26, Carolina just falls short of 24. And that's because Baker woke up way too late. He did not wake up feeling dangerous. He woke up late in the third quarter, and it was not enough. Kareem Hunt carries Cleveland home for the win. And it was a very confusing game for me to watch because I constantly looked at Cleveland and was thinking Baker Mayfield, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's Brissett. And then I would look at Carolina, and I'm like, who is that guy? I'm like, oh, it's Baker Mayfield. So that happening that fast, it was very confusing sometimes watching the game where I was like, who just scored what points? So that was funny to watch. But Hunt with 11 carries and 4 targets, 4 catches. He gets the 2 touchdowns, which were absolutely clutch for Cleveland. Chubb did have himself a good game, so don't sleep on that. It is going to be the two-headed beast over there with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, but you continue to roll them out every game. They should be both very heavily involved. Donovan Peoples-Jones was actually an interesting one to look at with Jacoby Brissett. He had 11 targets, so if you're very deep in leagues and you need to grab a wide receiver, there's nothing out there. Donovan Peoples-Jones with 11 targets is very promising, something you can monitor if you're needy at wide receiver. Baker wakes up late in what could have been a win if he did not fumble the ball 4 times. CMC looked good in his limited touches, only 14 touches, so this is one of the things that we talked about. Be wary. He's not, you're looking at him as the CMC, but he's probably not going to get up there as fast as you want him to. And this is kind of what we talked about. He's going to be limited touches. That's what I'm very worried about. Obviously, you still run him out as the running back 1, but adjust your expectations, set your lineup accordingly. Robbie Anderson, Robbie with an IE, not a Robbie with a Y anymore. He is getting the deep bomb touchdown in that game, so that gives him the good day, but not many people out there starting him. Moving on to New Orleans at Atlanta. Hello, Michael Thomas. Welcome back. New Orleans 27, Atlanta 26 in familiar territory for Atlanta, losing by 1 point, but Michael Thomas was back. We see him snag 2 touchdowns in his return. Sorry, sip time. But he did look dominant, and I will take my loss on this one because I was one to say at the beginning of the season I am out on Michael Thomas. I do not like players who just leave for a while. They can't come back, and I don't trust them to just come back to form. History and the stats are against them to just come back and be that guy. But he gets the targets. He gets the double touchdowns. He's dominant in the red zone, so keep looking at him to be that guy. Jarvis Landry also saw 9 targets, so I could see them two being the most heavily targeted wide receivers in this offense. Do expect that a little bit more out of Jarvis Landry, so if he is unrostered in your leagues, which he could be in some, go ahead and take a look at that. Taysom Hill with the Wildcat plays, so we see him move out of that tight end position right back into some Wildcat plays for the offense at quarterback position. So if you need a tight end or have something to look at tight end, there is a good play for you and Taysom Hill. Winston himself had a good game, so he's going to be a good streamer in certain games. He's going to have those games where he throws interceptions, but still for some reason and somehow has 25 points because he gets the touchdown. So Jameis Winston doesn't look that bad for New Orleans, getting off this win at Atlanta by 1 point. Mariota has the okay day. He gets a touchdown. He targeted Drake London a lot, which is promising. But Patterson, for me, is the big story again. Super heavily involved. Tyler Algier was a healthy scratch at the beginning of the game. So due to the fact that they are limited on running back and they healthy scratch Tyler Algier, this is going to be very promising Cordarrelle Patterson going forward. I'm very excited to see what Cordarrelle Patterson can do. And if you have him, make sure that he is in your running back 2 or flex spot every single week. He is going to continue to be heavily involved. And Pitts in another disappointing game for all the Pitts truthers out there. He did see 7 targets, but not enough for him to really get going at all. And now moving on into the next game, though I think this is the last game of the 1 p.m. slate. We have Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. This was an overtime game that went quite a bit that we saw the end of twice. So both teams really started off out of sync when it came to the beginning of the game. Both teams really were kind of, back and forth with each other. And, Burrow had 5 turnovers. I believe it was by the end of the game. Yeah, 5 turnovers by the end of the game. So the offense was really out of sync on both sides. Pittsburgh really looked bad on offense. Even that out route to Najee Harris, the throw was underthrown. It almost looked like it, made Najee Harris get hurt or, close to getting him hurt. You put him in harm's way is what I wanted to say. So that was very scary to see out of the Pittsburgh offense. And when it's something that easy and you can't really get your head around that was very hard to see. But Boswell bangs the game winner after it looked like Jamar Chase sealed the deal. But Boswell bangs the game winner after it looked like Chase sealed the deal. But the big story out of here is TJ Watt with the torn pec, and Najee Harris is seen in a walking boot after the game. So 2 big hits for the Steelers, one on offense, one on defense. Najee's injury is not considered to be serious, but we're going to have to monitor that, especially if you're the Najee manager. Be very wary of that. Deontay Johnson, he had a whopping 12 targets in this game, so that is very promising to anybody out there who is nervous about what Mitch Trubisky meant for this offense. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, all that. Deontay Johnson with the whopping 12 targets, so it's a sigh of relief for anybody out there. Pat Freiermuth was second in targets. He was very heavily targeted with 10 targets. So if you're one of those players out there who has Pat Freiermuth, it looks like he's going to be heavily targeted by Mitch Trubisky, and he's going to be used in those games a lot. So very excited for him. On the Cincinnati side of the ball, ouch, 5 turnovers for Joe Burrow and what should have been the win. The Bengals and Steelers offense, like we said, looked very out of sync, but Joe Burrow at the beginning not looking great at all. Jamar Chase had a big day out of that, and they should have even had a bigger game. Cincinnati should have blown them out of the water. T. Higgins left early with a concussion. We'll have to monitor that, but I do expect him to be back. He kind of looked like he wanted to go back into the game, but they wouldn't let him. But that opened up the door for the Tyler Boyd touchdown. So anybody who had the Tyler Boyd probably on your bench because you were scared of T. Higgins, but he gets the touchdown, and if T. Higgins is out next week, you will want to look at Tyler Boyd. Maybe he's on some waiver wires. And Hayden Hurst with 5 of 8, not bad, with very close to a touchdown. He just barely missed it, so if Hayden Hurst got that touchdown, you would have been happy, so you can take a look at him in streaming considerations going forward for tight end. Now moving on to our 4 o'clock slate. Patrick Mahomes, man, 44-21, and dare I say it, this is why I'm hesitating. Does Mahomes look better without Hill, or is that just me? Like, I was watching that KC and Arizona game pretty heavily. That was probably one of the games that I watched a lot more of today because I switched between red zone and a lot. But Mahomes looked automatic today, man. Mahomes really looked like he commanded wherever he wanted to go. He gets 5 touchdowns in this game, and he really looked like he did whatever he wanted. He spread the ball around a lot. So, dare I say it, man, Mahomes looks a little bit better right now. So I know it's only week 1. I don't want to, completely instant react to all of these, but wow, did Mahomes look, almost the best we've ever seen him. So very excited for that. Harrison Butker was carted off early. He returned. Kelsey and Mahomes opened up the game early with that touchdown. Mahomes goes wild with the 5 touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the second time. Let's blow the confetti. I need a popper. Pop the confetti for him. Maybe I can add effect. I'm not going to do it. I lied. Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the second time breaks 21 points. He gets 22 in this. He snagged 2 touchdowns off of just 10 touches in this game, so you can't really ask for more. When you only get 10 touches, you get two touchdowns off of that. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, great return for him. The wide receiver carousel, however, is one thing that I really do want to go back and look at. I'm very excited to watch this game from the coach's film perspective. But the carousel is what we thought it was going to be. Hardman gets the touchdown. He had 6 targets. Juju had more yards. He had 8 targets. MVS was 4 for 4, so take your pick and pray. It does really look like it's going to be Juju and Hardman like we kind of expected. MVS might be hitting that offside, but he could any game be the guy. You know what I mean? So that's why it's a little bit difficult for me, but we'll monitor that as we go. Zach Ertz, despite the snap count, he gets the touchdown to save his game. For anybody who did start him, I was risk adverse and said I am not going to start him, but he gets the touchdown to save that day. Hollywood, he was not the most targeted. That was Greg Dortch, who likely disappears next week when Rondale Moore is back. But Hollywood gets the touchdown and makes you happy this week. James Conner, he had a good day despite the lack of touches. He had a very low volume with just 15 touches, so consider that to be his floor. I expect him to have much, much bigger upside going forward for this offense. Moving on to the next 4 o'clock game, we got Minnesota at Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers, That's what you get. Good. I told you Green Bay was going to lose, and I'm glad. That's what you get for being a diva, for being a superstar diva, because you think you're Mahomes and Brady, and you're not. So this is what happens. Kevin O'Connell with a bang, the new head coach for Minnesota. He gets a win over Green Bay to start off the season, so good for him. It's in Green Bay. That's great stuff for them. Sammy Watkins does not have the exciting week one that we were hoping to be Mr. Week 1, but the best wide receiver over there was the rookie Dobbs, and it really wasn't much that you wanted over there. I do expect Lazard to shoulder that out of the way next week, and for Lazard to return to form and be very, very needed, so expect Lazard to maybe even have instant wide receiver 2 success with wide receiver 1 upside. So nothing on the wide receiver front, but it was all running backs in this one. And look at that, A.J. Dillon already out-touching Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones at the beginning looked exciting. A.J. Dillon gets basically the entire rest of the game, the majority of the touches, and has the better day. So very exciting for A.J. Dillon to see him do that so early on. Much like we saw, I had Aaron Jones as a bust on my show, had A.J. Dillon as one of my favorites in the offseason. So very excited to see A.J. Dillon pop out like that. And oh, by the way, Aaron Rodgers, he had 3 fantasy points. Ha! So JJ on the other side of the ball, returning the favor for the high draft price that you paid. Sorry. He goes off and he is just always open. It is not even fair how good Justin Jefferson is. He was wide open on every single play, which led to Thielen not being needed. He only had 6 points, which breaks your heart. He was a loss on my lineup of the week. Jefferson is literally just playing him by himself out there, so don't worry on Thielen. He will have some games, but lower your expectations. Be like water. Be able to, kind of move him onto the bench in favor of somebody else if you have an option that you can pivot to. Moving on to our next game here, we are looking at Las Vegas and the Chargers, and that is a strong opening for McDaniels and Las Vegas, even though they lost. Last sip time. Here we go, home stretch. So Chargers get the win at home, Vegas gets the loss, but McDaniels and them do look very promising for playing a team that is absolutely on fire. But let's talk about the Chargers real quick. Where did Mike Williams go? What happened? Keenan Allen out very early with a hamstring, and Mike Williams just disappears. Well, that's because the list of targets that Justin Herbert have was endless. Justin Herbert targeted 9 different receivers in this game. DeAndre Carter led the team, but only had 4 targets, and he gets the touchdown. Mike Williams also had 4 targets, so the absolute spread of the ball really was what happened in this game. And Eckler has involvement in the passing game as well, and all of the passing around is really what made Mike Williams disappear. I would not throw up the panic alarm on Mike Williams yet, but this is kind of in that Adam Thielen range of this is what you expect. It's going to have games where he's really, really high up there, and he has games where he really, really disappears. But I'm not completely out on him yet. I would definitely keep rolling with Mike Williams in your lineup every single week. Just be careful because he might put up these heartbreak games. And if you can move him, maybe it's time to move him, but I don't think anybody's going to pay the price for Mike Williams that you want. So Eckler has all the involvement despite his mediocre return. Gerald Everett getting that much-needed touchdown. He was in our lineup of the week. That's a W. Derek Carr on that side of the ball. He struggled like we assumed in this game. Now, Devontae Adams came into the game, played just like he picked up where he left off in Green Bay. But the team is going to need to get Renfro and Waller and Jacobs and all them a little bit more involved if they want to win this game. They can't just rely on Adams, so I do believe that Vegas will get a little bit better with that. Renfro, not a great showing in this game, plus he had the fumble. But you can still keep Renfro high up on your list. You can keep, expecting more out of him. They played a hard defense, so to see them put up in this game and what we know is going to be a good defense, then I do believe that Vegas is going to be worth, the prices and Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfro, Darren Waller, maybe even a Josh Jacobs. You'll be able to play them. So Darren Waller with a solid game. He had 6 targets. Very nice. Do not panic on Renfro. Now, moving on into the last game of this one. New York Giants get the win at Tennessee. New York Giants, hallelujah. You get the 1 point off of a missed field goal at the end of the game. Titans lose, and Ryan Tannehill at the end of the game delivered that strike, and we really were like, all right, that's it. They're going to kick the field goal. Giants lose. That's what happens. Okay, great. Giants go home. But nope. They missed the field goal, and Giants get the win, but that's not the big story. The big story is Quads, baby. Quads is back, and he's doing his best DeAndre Swift impression over in Detroit. He is gonna put this team on his back, so I'm glad this one was saved for last because you get to hear my Saquon Barkley take. If you are the Saquon Barkley truther, the Saquon Barkley manager, take your victory lap, rub it in everybody's face, rub it in my face because I wasn't high on him. I wasn't really drafted him. I don't think I drafted him anywhere. So rub it in everybody's face because Quads is back, and barring injury, knock on wood, we are always injury averse. We don't talk about that. We don't, you just don't bet on that because if it doesn't happen, then you're going to be excited. Unless you're talking about CMC, who is clearly being limited because of things like that. But yeah, Quads is back, baby, and he's going to carry this team. Very, very excited for that. On the Tennessee side of the ball, and on the Giants side of the ball, my man Sterling Shepard getting that touchdown, the deep bomb touchdown. So Kadarius Toney, again, disappeared in this game. So if you're looking at Kadarius Toney to be that guy, I really don't think it's going to happen with Daniel Jones. I'd really rather have Sterling Shepard. If Sterling Shepard's healthy, he could be that guy again. And I know I was on a tangent about Sterling Shepard last year before he got injured. He was showing those numbers. So if he keeps showing those numbers, if he does it again next week, I'm all over Sterling Shepard again, and I'm out on Kadarius Toney already. On the Tennessee side of the ball, a lot of spread around of the wide receivers, not much talk over there, but you do have Derrick Henry getting vultured by Dontrell Hilliard for 2 touchdowns, and that is a tough way for Derrick Henry managers to start the season. That's a rough one. That makes you sad. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for today. A nice little review for you on this Monday morning to get you set up. Denver and Seattle tonight. Obviously, I got Denver in that game. Russell Wilson going cook. Start your Rashad Penny. Start your Cortland Suttons. I'm very excited. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We are going to be back tomorrow with the waiver show, and we're going to cover, obviously, the Monday night game. Going to be another good one. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Take care. Have a good day.